Then we'll get going. So how I describe it is it's all about accelerated collective evolution in the world we are all living in now in practice. In brief, it is open-eyed and interactive and works with the subconscious, conscious, and superconscious minds through various methods designed to activate, utilize, and develop the powers and capacities latent in each of these spheres. The emphasis throughout is finding the still center within and relaxing into one's essential and unconditioned being and learning to think, speak, and act from that place of deep, lucid, and loving wisdom. The point of each meeting will be unique and will arise as a result of the exponential increase in conscious awareness and intelligence of all those present as the group moves through the 3 levels of consciousness. As a result, the expanded potential of the collective superconsciousness of all those present to discover innovative solutions to any and all of the problems that humanity is facing at this time will be one of the most potent and effective tools in the creative expression of compassion in action. So that's the basic description in brief of what this is all about. And then I further said for this meeting today, it was actually for the meeting next week, but we moved it up to today. I thought, felt, and sensed it might be useful to propose a theme in the form of a question to be meditated upon prior to our first Vegan Synergy meditation meeting. We're just going to do that now. Here's the multi-part question. 1, if this was your last moment on earth, would you be totally at peace with it? And that's the siddha or supernatural ability reflection point. Question number 2, is there at least one thing in your life that you're giving your all to, being total with, not holding back? And that's the gift reflection point. And number 3, is there anything you can't let go of that is holding you back? And that's the shadow reflection point. And that was just something I wanted to read to get us started. So, hi, Deborah. I hope you've heard all of what I just read. If not, I could repeat some of it.
I heard a good. I think I heard most of it. I mean,
okay, so
yeah.
that's what we're doing.
I'm not sure what you said before I got here, so I'm sorry.
Boy, I really like who's here tonight. These are all every single one of you I highly respect. So it's like to me an awesome group of radical people that, because I was saying earlier, Deborah, if even only a handful of people right now, we're 6. If even only a handful of people show up, that's better for us simply because we can go deeper and get more out of it. So anyway, those were the 3 questions, and we, as always, we'll start with the shadow, and I'll start as always, and then we can just move around and everybody can do it. And we'll just go one level at a time. We'll start with the shadow, and everybody release your shadow. And then we'll go into the question of the gift, and then we'll go into the question of the siddha. But before I do that, I'm going to kind of give a little bit bigger picture of how this came about by saying, if I was to die, I'm going to start with the siddha, in other words, and maybe I'll end up working my way down, and from there we can all go up together. But I'm going to start with the siddha question about if I was to die this moment, would I be at peace with that? And at first I thought about it, and I thought, well, yeah, of course, because I'm an awakened being, and I'm always in touch with my essence, and that happened 26 years ago, and I've been living it for a long, long time. And even after living an incredibly challenging and difficult life, materially speaking, I'm still happy. I mean, it's not like it's nothing sticks anymore. But what it did take me to, after a while, was a deeper place, and I said yes and no. Yes, because of the first thing I said, and no, because look who I have in front of me and how much I would love to share this with the world. So there's a lot, and especially like this, where it's out in the world at large, not just in a small room with groups of people like I used to do in decades past, which was the only way I had expressed it. And so what it made me think of is when I was 13 years old, one day walking down my junior high school hallway, and I lived in Maryland, Friendly, Maryland, a place called Friendly, Maryland. And so all the schools, the hallways are inside. It's an inside school because it gets really cold in the winter. So it's not like California, where all everything's outside. And I thought to myself, and I came to a dead stop when I thought this, I said, I'm going to die someday. Imagine it, 13 years old. It just hit me full force. I'm going to die someday. Does any of this mean anything? is it really that important? I mean, what's the big deal? Because I was on the basketball team. I was a really cute young man. I had the two cutest girls in the school were after me. So I was really feeling my oats, but everything in my life, when it gets really good, it always throws me to that rather than going, yippee, this is really cool. I go, oh, okay, you know, that's all the material world can give me, or the social world or whatever. But something from deeper within always bugged me. So that was the beginning of my path at 13 years old. And it drove me into studying martial arts for 4.5 decades now, and going to India and seeking out spiritual teachers, and doing all kind, and being just incredibly driven to find this answer of death. And 26 years ago, when I was in a place called Centro d'Ompio, Italy, where I was living, and I was the Tai Chi teacher / handyman for this beautiful group meditation resort run by this beautiful Swiss man named Pius, who, and it was way up on the hill, so we could see the lake, Centro d'Ompio, Lago, I think it was Lago, I can't remember anyway. It was down below. So it was a beautiful place. And I remember this was about 4 years after my main spiritual enlightened master teacher had left his body. And it was 4 years, and I still hadn't got it yet. And I still hadn't got that direct access and permanent grounding in my being and, you know, ability to come from my essence yet. And so I went through a serious struggle for about a couple of weeks at one point during this 9 months when I was living and working in that part of Italy. I lived in Italy for several years, and a lot of other places. But anyway, at that point, I remember one day walking into my workshop, my handyman workshop, and I sat down at my, and this was like almost like a little cave, and it had a great big gas bottle in there that fed the whole place, and all my tools were in a little corner over here. And I sat down, and all my life force just rushed out of me. And it literally, like I was falling into an abyss below me, and all my energy just quit. My head just fell flat on the table, and that was it. I was dead. That's what, I've never experienced anything like it. And it just, my entire, and I just said, I give up, demons take me. Whatever it was that was preventing me from being called enlightened, you know, from being enlightened or awakened or whatever you want to call it, who cares? Being in touch with essence, there's a lot of softer ways to say it that aren't so messed up by people's, you know, thinking they know what that means kind of thing. But I just put it all into this word demon as anything that was stopping me from finally, getting it. And so and as I was dying, and I knew I was dying, all my energy was going down through my body and into the earth, and I had no strength left. There was no power to do anything. I was just flattened on the table. I thought about that one great spiritual master for a moment. I thought, is there anybody in this life I really, that really, I want to remember? And that he was the only, not my parents, not anybody, not my friends, nobody, just him, this one beautiful man. So the minute I thought about him, all of a sudden it was as if the sky opened up, and all of a sudden all this grace came literally showering over me. And I sat up, and I was just innervated with this beautiful, soft, pulsating, the most gorgeous. I couldn't possibly I don't think, even with all the other experiences I've had after that, nothing felt better to me in my entire life than that moment. Because my how to call it, interpretation of that was the moment I met the source, the real source, the source of everything. Even of all the great creator beings that are in creation, the creator of all that, the one, because it was pure grace. And then I after that went through me for a few moments, I sat and I got out a list, and I said, reasons I want to stay, reasons I want to go. And I decided right then and there it was time to leave Italy. I mean, everything was just crystal clear. And I got out of Italy, came back to America, because I wasn't going to ever be able to be legal in Italy, unless I married an Italian, and the woman I was with was just having issues with that. And even though we did not have issues with each other, I said, I have to go. And she said, I'm not coming with you. And so that was 26 years ago. And for about the next 6 years, experiences like that were almost a daily occurrence for me, of all kinds of different natures and types and unusual things, while I still lived my ordinary life and earned a living, from everything from a bread baker to owning a martial arts school and teaching Tai Chi. And you know, and being a carpenter and a handyman and different things at different times just to make ends meet, because my focus was always spiritual. It wasn't about accumulating a lot of wealth. That's led at 61 years old to having a rather challenging life and having to work a 55-hour week every week, 52 weeks a year. And it is kind of challenging. And then to come home and to do those, but you know, hey, if I guess this is when I have to make that shift, is now. So now is when I want to put myself out there and start to share this incredible stuff that happened during, and it's not that it stopped after that 6-year period. It's just that it wasn't the focus anymore. And it was time to just really just the next period, the next 20 years, which is the time since I've been married to Amira, has been about just being in the world. And really, because before then I really didn't enjoy people. And I thought people were superficial and just not worth my time, to be honest, except the ones I met that were around my spiritual teachers who I could relate to. We had some common ground, but even a lot of them were kind of boring to me at times, because they just we get so focused on material things, and this world draws you so much into the mundane and welds you to it. And so people's great fascination and preoccupation with that kind of thing 24/7, just there was no depth to it. And I could sense that, and it was never very interesting to me. But after these last 20 years, now something has changed, and I absolutely love people. I don't know how that happened, because I would never have chose to. And at the same time, I have my enlightening abilities, or whatever you want to call it. And not only that, I'm able to really relate with people a lot better in these last 20 years, because Amira is just impeccable when it comes to watching her in the world. Is amazing how she can relate to anybody, high, low, left, down, upright. It doesn't matter. She can change so quick too, from any mood to any other mood. And it's just watching her masterful ability with relating to people just always, I just absorbed it, I guess, because again, it wasn't something that I tried to practice or figure out. So that's just a little bit of history about me, and I guess it's appropriate at this first meeting to kind of, and I doubt if I'll ever go through all that again, except maybe little bits and pieces, and go into areas a little more here and there, but not like this. So this will be recorded, and people can always look at it for that. So that preoccupation, or that imprinting at 13 years old, because I remember where I started. I wonder if anybody else does. But anyway, that preoccupation with death sent me on a journey, and this was that journey. And so, as I said, for me, the siddha, I would be absolutely at peace with if this was my last moment, because I'm doing the second question exactly what I want to do right here, right now. Absolutely. This is the thing where my totality can come forth. This is the gift I can give to the world. This is what I can share. And now landing down into the shadow, what is holding me back, and what am I still holding on to? You know, that's funny. I've never worked it this way from the siddha down, because now I seem to have some insight into it, and I realize it's going to sound almost I forgot what the right word to but it's just like really looking at that and going, is there anything holding me back? You know, I mean, yes, I do have a work schedule I have to do to pay the rent and to pay the bills and to do all those things. But it seems like I am doing what I want to do. I just want to do it all the time. So I guess what's holding me back from that is just the time it's going to take till I get there. I don't know how else to put it. Because obviously, I mean, my shadow in this particular theme we've got tonight is just that I never gave enough credit to the power of the material world and the earth aspect, and how it balances the heaven aspect. And thank God for women in the world, because that has been my greatest teacher, women showing me that every moment. Yeah, you can go out and teach people all these great things, but you missed a spot on the counter there from breakfast this morning you didn't wipe. You know, I mean, that's real. That's what it's about. But yeah, that is what it's about. That is what it's about. And that never stops. So it doesn't matter, guys, how awake you become. Socrates' wife is always going to be right behind you with a broom. If you know the story of Socrates and his wife, boy, my Abitibi, she was radical. The ultimate good wife for a guy who was awake. Wow. But so I'm glad I have a woman like that with me, Amira. She is definitely, whew, she is definitely a sorceress with a wicked broom. So, but that, I thank the lucky stars for that, because that keeps us men on track. And so I think I don't know how that humor came out of there, but yeah, I mean, so I am obviously in some ways in the world still a little bit, and girls, you will appreciate this, lame, you know. So, and that's my shadow, and I can admit that, and yes, I'm a little immature still and need to grow in that way. So I offer that, and I think it's really cool to be somebody who can host my Buddha nature and at the same time still have my delightful childish need to grow up a little bit in certain areas, because I think that's what we're all going to need to bring to the table now if we're all going to come together and be a table of wizards, And as we expose these shadows with each other, like we're doing, like I'm doing, like I always start with, and just admit, I fess up to where my fault is at this moment, it can heal so quickly, as Melissa was sharing earlier. It can heal so quickly if you're willing to expose yourself and just say, hey guys, I'm a little lame in the material world. I know I know I'm not as good as earning wise and the level of living as probably anybody else here, but I don't, that's just what but sometimes I guess, it's my way of rationalizing that is, so this is part of my shadow, because rationalization is a shadow. So I might as well expose all of it. So my way of rationalizing that is, well, I was so into the spiritual, I really didn't have time for the other thing. And I always, I learned enough skills so that wherever I landed, I could always, build a house or teach some Tai Chi or bake some bread, but nothing to settle down and get rich about and whatever. But so just enough to keep me covered, which I guess, in a way was good enough. But at this point in my life, I'm seeing that I wish to find a way to do this full time and create a livelihood that I can support myself doing that. And so that would be, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's my gifts, getting into the gift, and I don't want to go there until everybody else can. In relation to the three questions we asked, starting with, if you think about it the way I presented it, if you were to leave your body right now and this was your last moment, would you be at peace with that? And not in a way like, oh, I'm glad to be out of here, the world sucked. That's a shadow. It has to be an absolute celebration. Otherwise, it's not a yes. And then you go into, is there anything in your life that you are giving, not just that you're doing all the time you think is really cool, but for a fact it's engaging all of you. And it may just be for a bit every day or whatever, or it may just be once in a week or wherever, but somewhere it exists in your life. And you're really engaging that. And it engages all of you. And then you drop down into, well, what's holding you back? What are you still holding on to? So whoever wants to, after that, introduction and and the beginning of the process, whoever would like to share their shadow of what's holding them back, or actually I'll just leave it wide open. I mean, really, if you want to do it the way I did it with shadow and then go into gift and then drop into, or you can start at the gift and go, you can go any way you want, because I see that it has value to go. I always went from shadow up, but I see that it has as much value to go any way you want. So whatever's hitting anybody, Siddha, which is a miraculous ability, gift, your genius, or shadow, your child that is wounded still, whichever one you want to start with, anybody.
Excuse me. So in terms of it, if I left the planet, left my body right now, I don't know that necessarily is leaving the planet, but if I were to leave my body and no longer have a presence in this physical presence here, I believe there have been times where I've really felt that connection with the unseen realms as strongly as, or very close to as strongly as the physical presence, and I felt like, gosh, yes, I want to go there. It just, like, from this place of excitement. And when I think of leaving the body, I do get really excited about that opportunity to be there. I do. I think in this moment, what I'm going to go out of order, what holds me back from that, and of course I'm not faced with death in this moment, and actively, and I don't know what would happen if I came face to face with it, of what survival instincts would kick in. But there's a part of me that just really like, yes, 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 I can't wait. And I want to go because I think it's going to be a wonderful experience. And if there's something holding me back right now, is in the last, just over 2 years ago, I moved in with my father, who is now 97. And I also got heavily involved and invested in my nephew's children and a couple of his children. He had they're coming out of a really rough period, and his children had some traumatic early years, and one has got some they've got some developmental delays and developmental disabilities, and I've become very close to them. And I think one of the things that holds me here is that I want to be in their lives and to still, be there to help them and to, be a positive influence in their lives. And I do believe that if I were to, or I certainly hope and pray that if I were to go out of this body, that I could still be helping them and cheering them on and, offering them some support and protection from there, and hopefully have at least left an imprint on them that will carry forward as a positive influence in their life, because I know that their hard times are not over. So that's what holds me back in terms of, like, I'm not sure exactly what the second question was, but am I doing what I want to be doing what is it that I give 100%, give my all to?
Yeah.
And that's, that is my work. I do work in the, my work is with spirituality, healing, spiritual counseling, and I do that every day, and I put a lot of time and energy and effort into it, and it's very rewarding, and I love it, and I feel blessed to have been given the gifts that I've been given in this life and to be able to share them. So I guess in terms of that, the thing that holds me back is, am I doing enough? Have I done enough? Especially now over the last few years that I've been splitting my time between a 97-year-old and a 7-year-old, a couple of 7-year-olds. So life has been, it used to be when it was just me, 100% of my focus went into that, and now it's spread, but it doesn't actually makes it even more purposeful, if you know what I mean. So but it slows down that momentum in a sense, the forward momentum. However, it also gives more meaning, having that focus of making a difference in the here and now in this world with the people that I'm close to. People through the internet and through the phone lines and that.
Deborah, just a reflection, on your sharing. I get mostly from what you just shared, your gift. That's what I get. Mostly your gift. Maybe if I do a little bit more on my shadow, you'll get the hang of what I mean by shadow, or you'll feel a little bit more, or anybody else can come. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you do it right now. And there, like I said, there is no order. But for me, my shadow arises from a huge judgment of the powers that be and how how unfair they are in hoarding their money the way they do, just because they found a way to do it, so they think it's right just because they can do it. And how it is creating most of the suffering on this planet is as a result of billionaire greed and stinginess. It's obvious. The resources are stuck in a small place. That brings up huge anger in me, huge anger. And my answer to that was, which is biting me in the ass now in later life, not in a real way, but in a superficial, on the surface sort of where I got to deal with it in the world sort of way. And thank God I have the energy and I'm in touch with what I'm in touch with in order to do it. You know, I'm a true warrior, so I'll deal with it and I'll handle it. But what it did is it made me just go, you know, forget this. I'm not even interested. I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to go create my own game over here, and I'm just going to make my way in the world however I do, and I'm going to focus on what I want to focus on. And it really cut me, but what it did is it cut me off a lot from the rest of the world. There were a lot of gifts in there I could have taken, along with maybe a few, you know, hard knocks had I chose to go that way. But I just felt like I had only so much energy, which may or may not have been true, but at the time that's how I felt. I only had so much energy, and I was going to put it into this question of death, which led me into my spiritual path and taught me about life in a way that most people never get to experience it. So, you know, there's like a residual sort of sadness for that little boy in me that could he maybe have just opened a little more, he might be a little better off right now, and not have to start in such a way that causes him to have to work so damn much at my age, just to make ends meet, just to live paycheck to paycheck. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, but there's a big falsification out there in the new age, and I mean new age, not real, new age. And it's most of the spiritual world, like 99% of it is that says, well, whatever's inside, you know, if you're rich on the inside, you'll be rich on the outside. And if you're not rich on the outside, you're not rich on the inside. It's BS, because that has nothing. There are beggars in India that are enlightened beings that taught some of our greatest spiritual masters. They didn't care about money. They truly didn't. And they lived in the place where you could really not care about it and live in your little cave next to the river. And you lived off whatever people threw into your hut, because they heard about you from 1,000 miles away, because you're this incredible guy who doesn't give a snort about whatever. So that's just an illusion that it's called spiritual materialism. I mean, it's just that thing that people ascribe to, that they're going to use the spiritual to become better people and make more money and have a great career. And that's not what spirituality, that's the wrong use of power with spirituality. Absolute wrong use. And the people that are headed that way, and say, you know, God bless them. If it wasn't for them, then you couldn't say, you know, most people are going to go that way anyway, and they need something to do, and that's better than being what a lot of people are in the world, which is just stuck at the surface of lawyer, doctor, whatever, and that's all they're going to do in life, and they don't know anything else. They don't want anything deeper. They never think anything deeper, you know. So that's okay, but then there's also the real thing, and the real thing means you have to face whoever you are. That may not necessarily mean you're going to be successful in the world. It may mean that if you choose to focus on that and make it a discipline, like I did I was a very uncoordinated kid, so I focused on martial arts so I could get coordinated. But I had to put the work in to do that. I had to make it a discipline. So unless you're natural at something, there is no automatic, if you're, you know, this deeply spiritual person, that everything's just going to flow to you like you're some kind of wealthy tycoon. I mean, it's a horrible image, and it's just wrong. And it's so American. It's so American. It's like, let's be the successful little whatever, you know. So as you can see, what I'm sharing with you there is a lot of where I built up my shadow, but there's also truth in it too. I'm also moving a little bit into my gift and showing that that the truth is deeper than what a lot of people proclaim as a successful spiritual person being somebody who has figured out how to work the material world to their benefit. I mean, the essence of spirituality is for everybody else's benefit. You start with yourself, but then the minute you have it, you share it. I mean, that's the point. You share it. Accumulation and holding, you know, these companies that put products first and employees last. That's why the world's running down the tubes. it's a simple solution. If companies put people first, and every time I was a boss, that's what I always did. And all my jobs, whatever I did, they always ended up ahead of schedule. And everybody was so happy working together. We all look forward to coming to work every day together because I put people first. That's the way it works. That's the new system that needs to come. That's what, when I introduced myself to Rao a little bit more than I did a couple years ago at Zen Nights for a few minutes, and he remembered me from then. He said the Aquarius group, and I said, oh, and then I looked at it later. I said, oh, it's about a new way of handling resources and stuff. And I said, well, I already know the first point, unless it's people oriented and people are first, because people are what make a company and what make everything go round. If they're not being taken care of, then they're not going to even want. They don't care about their job. They just want their money. They want to get done at the end of the week and go have their weekend, and screw work at the end of that. But if it's the other way around, it's like you get to the end of their week and it's like, oh, dang, the week's over and I still want to do more. This was fun. I'm really enjoying this. You know, well, okay, I'll just get through my weekend so I can get back to work and have fun. It's not really work anymore, you know, when it's people first. So that kind of shifted a little bit how I'm working my shadow and my stuff with that into the gift area. But you see, you got to kind of get down and a little dirty a little bit and really get honest about where you're coming from with your shadow. And then somehow the gift just hops in. And if you just keep going, then the gift comes in and it kind of takes you to where you can see, oh, okay, yeah, that's what that's about. You saw that so you could see how you can play the complementarity of that and shift it into your gift. So that's just to give a little bit more of how to open the shadow up a little bit. Because sometimes it's a bit freaky to go into the shadow. But the more you can go into it once you get through the gift, the more of the siddha, when we get to that point, I'll be able to assist us in bringing down and really getting electrified with some very upright, luminous, cool consciousness. But it all depends on how much shadow we are willing, because that's where it's going to go. It's going to go right into those places you share in your shadow right now. Because you could see when I was sharing, you could sense there was a little bit of sadness in there and some frustration and anger and some other things. And I expose it in the way I honestly just verbalize it, and you can hear it in the intonations and stuff. And at some points I was even pointing out it was a little bit sad about that, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And it's not, you don't, I mean, if it comes and there's a lot of energy behind it, you can express it. But my emphasis has always been just feel it. Just feel it, let it go through you and feel it, and then express it so everybody gets it, everybody receives it from you. Because once the whole field receives it, it dissolves, and then it's easy for your gift to come out of that space. Kind of like a seed emerging from its shell.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess if I were to go more into the shadow of one of the things that really holds me back is the, similar to what you said about money and the way that people have abused and manipulated things financially in order for personal gain in a way that hurts others, and not wanting to be a part of that system. I spent a long time not wanting to be a part of that system, and I still don't like everything that I do for, you know, I'd like things to be a little bit better in terms of that, making ends meet and really feeling 100% in that. But I think maybe if we were to go into the power and like the power and influence side of things, because that's also a way that people, and it's usually people who do have money, use their ability to influence and kind of exert power from that place of, you know, that look at me and super confidence and this is the way it is and boom, 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 like out there personality. I think maybe that's my shadow, is that instead of being really out there in a positive, confident way, I'll hold back because I don't want to be, you know, I mean, I guess without getting into politics, I do think that our current president and administration it kind of puts blatantly in our face our love affair with narcissistic abuse, and one of the patterns that are, I mean, on a mass scale, that are, you know, we've got half the country who is in love and cheering on a narcissist, and I think that I would perhaps, because I have known other leaders who border on that, but not near as what I think is in front of our faces right now. And I do work with a lot of people who have been in abusive relationships, and there's, you know, that manipulation and playing the victim when you're really the abuser, and like that whole thing. I think it's really in our faces right now,
Deborah?
and that I would want to overcompensate and hold back. Yes.
How is that personal to you? Because the shadow is always personal to the person.
So, okay, that's what I was just saying, that I see that, and so I tend to not want to be that, so I hold myself back rather than just standing up and being and saying, you know, this is who I am, this is the message that I have to share. And, you know, I mean, when it comes to veganism, when it comes to environmentalism, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to all of those things, like I can feel it in here. It's just like, ugh, don't be one of those guys that, or, you know, people that's like, hey, I'm it, be like me, and, you know, when life is good, so hold back.
Got it. That was excellent. I felt your heart and your sadness on. I got where you were coming from on that one. So just another pointer, because as we go into it more and more, I'll start to add different elements. But with the shadow, it's always personal. It's something that you take personal. And
yeah,
that's
I do
why
take that personally. I mean, I do.
Yeah, no, I know. I was talking to everybody, and then I was going to unless you have some more you want to say about that. Otherwise, I was going to say real quickly that the gift is always collective. It's always about how we can share with others, and the siddha is always universal. It always is about how we connect with things beyond and higher and above. So that's all. If you needed more to say on that, go ahead.
No, not really.
Okay. Yeah, no, it definitely, because everybody feels it when you finally hit the shadow, and that's all we're looking for. It doesn't have to be a perfect expression or anything, but at a certain moment, everybody will get hit, and they'll feel that pain, that suffering, that we each carry and we each go through with our shadow, and that's it. And then, so who would ever like to? I invite whoever feels moved to. Share their shadow in relation to what Ray so, you know, nicely put over here to the side. The 3 questions are there with us. If you haven't opened up your chat, do it, because then you'll see the 3 questions that we're working with. And thank you, Deborah, for getting real at the shadow.
I'm ready to jump in. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you so much, Gordon. And thank you all. It's so wonderful to be sharing this space and time with you all. If I were to depart this life, this body right now, it kind of shocks me to say that, yes, I would be at peace with it. I mean, I have more to give, but the fact that I've been able to share so much with all of you who are in this meeting right now, and many others, you know, I just have faith that you all would carry on what I have given, right? And I really want to give more, so I'm in no hurry to depart. Don't get me wrong. You know, I really want to be here for the next phase of accelerated evolution of humanity and of all of life on Earth, and really that gets to the second point of that's what I'm really giving my all to, is this accelerated evolution, collective intelligence, all of us coming together, creating these amazing platforms and this new culture and this new way of being. Because I feel like once we make that transition, we'll look back on these days right now as the last days of this prolonged 10,000 year period of dark ages, where hoarding was the order of the day. And there was just all this barbaric hoarding while, 500 million people were hungry, malnourished, all the way to starving to death. And anyway, so that's what I give my all to, and including giving my all financially, to the point that, I'm now at a place of kind of dwindling resources. Still haven't had to work, at a job or anything like that to generate income for a while. And so I've really been able to give my time, resources, everything. And so that's what I give my all to. And I really think this whole resource thing is really this collective delusion, this, as Daniel Pinchbeck puts it, this possession trance, that we're entranced with this idea that we can possess, land, resources, nature, even other people, and their time. So I have faith that we can and will very soon break out of all this. So really excited for that. In terms of what's holding me back, I feel that it has been a dependence on substances, principally cannabis and alcohol. And I'm in a phase right now of really downshifting from use of those substances. And that's going really well. I feel really, really good about it. I don't know that I'll completely stop using those substances, but definitely putting them in their proper place in my life in terms of limited use, and really getting more into just my core, my center, right, my essence. And feeling really good about that, and really grateful to all of you who are helping usher in the new Jamin, the old Jamin, and super grateful to you all for that. And open to any clarifying questions or coaching. Hey, Jamin, that was great, but what about this? Happy to contribute more and to be guided.
I just, you hit the note there for a moment and then skimmed right over it and went back into more of a gift style, but you hit the addiction, self-destructive addiction pattern that you are obviously under the spell of and trying to become the master of again, is what I got from what you said. So somewhere in there is the twist that is tweaking you. And I invite you to step into that a little more and show us what you're all about there. The neat thing about this kind of work is that if for one person it may be a challenge, but for 6 people it's a piece of cake. So the minute you can get it off your chest, we'll all eat it for breakfast and get on to the next person. It's easy.
Totally. All right. Well, let me may I, Gordon? Okay. So, here's the thing. I think that being in this world and seeing all the destruction and the hoarding and the power tripping, possession trance and abuse and everything else, it's so heartbreaking for me that when I discovered cannabis at the ripe age of 42 or 43, and just, whoa, I just felt like I could just swim in this ocean of love. I remember this one evening going out to dinner with my dad and my brother over to some friends, to the home of some friends. And we were all hanging out there, and I'd eaten a quarter of a marijuana brownie. This was like in 2012. And I remember I'd always felt like this fear and tension around my brother, who's been somewhat of a nemesis to me throughout my life. And then just suddenly not feeling any fear and just feeling just love and connection. And I just started laughing so hard that my stomach started to hurt. And I literally had to dive onto the living room carpet and roll around to roll it off because I was just laughing so hard. And so for me, it just became this portal to this magical world of love and no fear and creativity and all this great stuff. And then I just started going there very often, and then kind of all the time. And and then I'd come back out of that into the, real world, and then went through some tragedies of having my company stolen from me that I had founded and funded and, had my family name associated with, and my marriage falling apart, and just so much of my world falling apart. And then I really dove into basically 24/7 cannabis, essentially. Aside from some breaks here and there, but was really deep into it. Really kind of got lost. Now the experience I have now is that the world really needs me and needs my full attention and commitment and all my love and creativity that I can give. And I refuse to be swept away into some other world where I'm really not feeling, the love and the needs of the world, and just where I just kind of feel like a lot of my sensitivity is toned down. So what I'm currently on is a regimen I've just started two and a half weeks ago, which is 3 weeks off of cannabis, and then 1 week when I can use it whenever I want during that week. But the other 3 weeks, no cannabis at all. And I'm similarly kind of downshifting out of alcohol. Have been taking about 3 drinks per night. And now I'm going to downshift to 2 starting tonight, and then we'll see where we go from there, kind of thing. Anyway, and back to you, Gordon, and let's keep the back and forth. Happy to be.
Remember, it's Dharmendra. I think you kind of.
I'm so sorry, Dharmendra.
You blanked my first name, and I do that sometimes even with people I know too, so it's no big deal. But okay. Gordon, I don't like to be called Gordon.
Thank you, Dharmendra. Sorry.
But I'll get over it. I mean, if somebody called me Gordon all the time and they really were stuck on that, big deal. But I'm just saying, to you, I can say I don't like being called that. Don't call me that, because I can be real with you. But yeah, that's really cool, Jamin. I had no idea you had been thrown that deeply under the bus. So that was quite a harrowing thing to have to sit and listen to from somebody I love. I feel for you. That must have been quite something. Definitely see that your heartbreak at some point probably was really unbearable, to the point where you just had to go into an escape mode for quite a while. And I mean, I've been there myself at various times in my life. And yeah, wow. Anyway. Yeah, definitely got the shadow and all that. It was kind of like I was right there in there with you, because I could relate to several places, including the addiction stuff. I don't deal with that right now, but I definitely have in the past. Okay, so anyway, Jamin hit the note of the shadow. Deborah's on a short break. So I invite anybody else who wishes to train their courage a little bit and expose their shadow.
Well, since we got the mic on, I might as well jump in here. Yeah. Well, I woke up this morning, interestingly enough, with those questions on my mind, Dharmendra. Talk about synchronicity. And I ask myself those questions on a regular basis and have done for many years. Because I think it was the Marquis de Sade, was it him, who said to his wife at the end of his life, what if my whole life was a lie? And I think I learned about him when I was like 14 or 15. So that really impacted me, along with the work of Joseph Campbell and Michael Meade. And you probably know Joseph Campbell is a great mythologist and taught on the East Coast, said to his students, follow your bliss and make sure you don't lean your ladder against the wrong wall all of your life. And you're trying to get over this wall and it's the wrong one. So, for me, my life is and has been this miraculous journey. I've had so many incredible lives within a lifetime, so many experiences, and have embraced them all fully. And I continue to do so. And I don't feel my time is up yet. If it were up, I believe I would be at peace, because I have asked myself this question repeatedly. Is there anything left I want to do? Is there anywhere I want to go? Is there anyone I want to see? You know, all these questions. And like, yeah, I'd like to see Japan, but I don't have to. You know, whereas maybe 20 years ago, I would have said, I really need to get to Japan. And more recently, like, I've got to this place of gratitude where I say thank you to my ex-husband, thank you to whatever experiences I've had for what they brought me in terms of lessons and growth, rather than looking at them as hardship. Even though they were challenging and hard, they're blessings. And I really see that very clearly and have no regrets there. I am on purpose. My work, I invest myself fully in, whether I'm teaching, creating art, or, you know, doing this art that is focused on healing work here for the planet and for all species. And so, because I think about that and I question that all the time, and I'm constantly revising how I'm doing, what I'm doing, could I be more effective? For me, that is my journey. I would say the shadow work for a long time, but Dharmendra, again, going back to what I said to you earlier, I really feel like you have, through these 2 workshops, and I work very fast. I'm a Sagittarius, I'm like triple fire or something. It's really jumped me into this other zone. So I don't know if the shadow I'm going to mention is still the shadow, because I feel like the last couple of days I've really shifted into this new place. But I'd say that for a long time, the shadow had to do with confidence and a lack of self-confidence and self-worth, which is kind of paradoxical, because I know about my gifts. Like, I've been given these incredible gifts in this lifetime to use that are kind of mind-boggling. But I practice gratitude around that, and I use them. Like they say, use them or lose them, right? So I'm very conscious of that too. But I don't feel so lacking in confidence. Like today I started back in my studio and it was a pleasure for me. I'm like, oh great, I get to make art again, which I've been away from for a really long time. And so I could fall straight into the experience of the art making without feeling guilty, without feeling shame, without feeling I don't deserve this, without feeling bad about spending my time doing that. So I feel like I'm more balanced, I guess, or, you know, it's hard for me to put it into words. It's like more balanced, more grounded, more whole, more on purpose, and everything's kind of lining up now really fast. And I just wanted also to say to you when you had spoken earlier that, like, because I feel like you and I are kind of pretty parallel on a lot of things, because I've also had a lot of issues in the past around money, and spirituality and where to situate those two. But I've done that. I've been doing that work. about being practical, learning to make money, how to use it correctly, blah, 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 or well, is that I do feel like all this lifetime of 60 years has been in preparation for this moment now, that we really get to put these gifts we've accrued over probably many lifetimes and work very, very hard to hone and tone and tweak, and like we're tuning forks, for this moment now. Like, I feel like we're so on time here and now. And so my prayer of gratitude is thanking Creator that I can be here now to use all of my being and all of my gifts for this purpose. And that's where I'm at.
You know, there's something very beautiful in what you're hinting at. And so I'll share something in relation to that. There's two ways you can go about your shadow. Because as long as you're still in a body, there's a shadow. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in a body, because the only reason you're in a body is because of the existence of a shadow. But there's two ways to go about it. One is to, what we've been sharing so far, we're just saying this is what we're dealing with. For me, every morning, I start my day with 40 minutes of stillness, and I hold different mudras that come from a very ancient sacred martial art, and it is very intense to do. And then I do another 40 minutes of Bagua, which is beautiful spiraling movement type martial arts. It's in the same class as Tai Chi, but it's not done just slow. It's much more versatile in the way it moves. So every day I deal with my shadow by literally engaging it and moving into my body and working with the limitations of my body at 61 years old every day through stillness and movement, which are the two poles of sacred martial arts. And so it's a beautiful thing that you can say, because it's not necessary that your shadow has to be a burden. It doesn't have to be a burden. If you take responsibility for it, then you just pick your cross up and say, this is what I'm going to do with my cross every day. And what I do with my cross every day is that's what I do every day with my cross. I get on it, I light it up, and then I ride through the rest of my day. I mean, the reason I share the shadows the way I do is because I want to inspire people to, if there is some shadow work in there, this is the place to expose it, to open it, to share your story, whatever your story is. And it doesn't always mean that you're even going to have a story about any one of the levels. I mean, let's face it, when we get to the siddhas, it may take years before you fully realize what you're stepping into when we get to the third step, past the gift. So, you know, it's like all of it works. All of it is, you know, acceptable. And it's just what is your personal thing. How do you face yourself every day is really what the shadow is. How do you face yourself? Because you're even in the unfolding the way it's happening for you, which is kind of, you know, seems like it's really flowering, then the only shadow would be maybe it's just not happening quick enough or something like that. You wish it could go even more, or, yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's always something. It doesn't necessarily have to have a negative light. Once you embrace your shadow, you really get the point that that's what you got to do. You have to embrace it and not let go of it. It's not about embracing it. It's gone, good, okay, I don't have to deal with that anymore. No, I've embraced it because I'm taking responsibility for it, and I'm holding it close to me because that's where it belongs. I don't need to throw my shadow on others. It belongs close to me because it's my greatest guide. And when you use it that way, yeah, then it can be it can be like motivational. It's probably, I won't say creational, because creational is truly a gift. But motivational for sure. It is definitely a motivator when it's clean.
Yeah, and I kind of, you know, now that I'm listening to you, like, I see it like a spotlight. Like yesterday, I think it was Tuesday, when I was really falling into the teaching in this new way, I got to peek into the shadow. Because in the past, because I've had this obsession with, oh my God, I've got to make my rent, you know, I've got to, you know, but so I wasn't fully engaged in the teaching, because for me it was more about making money than the actual teaching, you know. Although I love teaching, But this time I didn't do that. And there's this weird thing too, because I was actually getting paid properly. So there's the self-worth thing, right? I dared ask for the right amount of money to value my worth. So, and it was accepted. So I'm getting paid properly, which kind of, I think, expanded my shadow, or I don't know, it allowed me to fully engage in what I was doing in this heartful way that wasn't no longer about the money. And it became a spotlight on it, and I went, oh, I'm actually really enjoying this. I'm not looking at my watch right now, like, when is this going to end?
Right, right.
I wanted it to go on more, regardless of the money.
Right, and this is the next step that we as a collective want to all step into together, is that place that you're sharing, because it's not like we're going to work on shadow forever. It's something that you do until you finally own it and get clear about it, and you just put it under your feet and make it be your ground, and then it will motivate you in the right way, and then it's always about what's in your heart and how do you share it, and that's your gift. And what I'd like to do now is invite Ray or Nolan if they have anything they want to share in the shadow, because I do want to try and get through all three phases tonight with everybody, if we can, and because I have a certain time I need to stop, because I get up at 3:15 in the morning and start my day. So, and so that's all. And someday I look forward to not having to say that, and we can go as long as we want, because the best time to do this kind of stuff is after midnight. It gets really insanely incredible after midnight. It's so much fun. Oh my God. When I was first getting into it and discovering it several decades ago, whoa. That's where you find siddhas. Like, it's easy. It's easy to find siddhas after midnight. It's kind of how it works. But if Ray or Nolan, if you feel to share anything, you don't ever have to. It's always nice if you do, though, because it brings something into the space that wouldn't be there without your sharing. But I'm not saying that to pressure you. It's just true.
Well, I'm glad I held off, because I had to really think about these questions, because I think one of the things that define me is that I'm a very detached person. I think when I was about 10 or 12, and I was became an avid reader, and I was engaged in stories, and I was engaged in the escapism of stories. I think I've gone into the world of story, and I'm not sure if I've ever come back. There are times in my life where I'm surprised to meet myself, where I get swept up into whatever I'm involved in. I'm involved in a story, whether it's the work that I'm doing or the narrative that I'm following through the news on television. I've never been a big follower of actual news until recently. There's been a big shift in my life since becoming vegan, because I found a story that's become more worthwhile. And I think I was involved with working in a church on and off for over 20 years. And it was evangelical church that I've never been evangelical. I was raised as a Christian, but I don't identify as a Christian. I don't practice any sort of faith. But I think I've engaged with their story, and a lot of people ask me, well, if you're not a Christian, if you're not evangelical, why would you tolerate that environment for so long? And usually it's in those terms. Why would you tolerate that? But they're storytellers, so I think that I can relate to that. And everybody is exposing the story in themselves. But I think I've also been raised as very much in the mainstream of society, where everybody kind of keeps to themselves, has their own ideas, their own spirituality, and you kind of wear it on your sleeve, and you go to church and you identify as something. So there never really has been a way to express it. But when I became vegan and when I became involved with the animal rights activism and environmentalism, I really realized that everything that had happened to me previously was keeping me in a holding pattern, was teaching me skills that weren't to be used now, but to be used later. So I was a storyteller in the sense that I was a video editor for a television program, and had a career in video editing, both in this church and outside of it. It was a televised church program. I grew up in northern Manitoba, and I decided that I wanted to tell stories. I was first inspired to be a novelist, and then decided that screenwriting was a more contemporary form of novelism. So when it came time for me to go to the university, I ended up going to Bemidji State in northern Minnesota, which is actually pretty close to Manitoba, where I came from, thinking that Americans have a much more robust film history. Yeah, it's not in Minnesota. I think Hollywood was the place that I had in mind, but an interesting thing happened. I ended up being a part of a mass communications degree, which was essentially journalism. And I was surprised to discover there was so much journalism and so much telling the truth. And I think the search for truth in story is what has really been defining myself. And I've just realized this is something that has been going on for a long time, and I haven't been able to put my finger on it. I've had a lot of struggle between wanting to tell the amazing lies that is fiction.
What about glitter?
But there isn't any fiction that's any good that isn't telling some sort of a truth. And the worst kind of fiction is the fiction that distracts people from the truth and distracts people from the being connected with everybody in times of need, like as we're experiencing now. So I've become both embracing story and criticizing story at the same time. And I'm trying to come down to earth a little bit. I think the detachment has helped me a lot. The first question is, if it was your last moment on earth, would you be totally at peace with it? Generally, I am, because I'm usually surprised to discover that I'm alive, that I'm only an individual. The story is always bigger than you are. So, I was moved by Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut about Billy Pilgrim being able to visit every part of his life, and he visits his death frequently, and he's come to terms with it. It doesn't bother him at all. And I kind of see that as part of my character. I argue with my wife about the existence of destiny, and I have a very bland definition of destiny. Something's going to happen, and then when it does, that was destiny, which isn't really the romantic version of destiny, like usually knowing your destiny or having, in that sense, having visited your destiny. It's more of a case of, well, something's going to happen, and then when it does, you go, well, that happened. So if I died right now, I'd probably, my final thought would be, well, that happened. Is there a feeling that there's work left to be done? There certainly would be, and it would be a sad kind of a moment where I went, well, it felt like I had a lot more to give, but I guess this is how it turns out. That happened. So I was really struggling to apply myself to these questions. Is there anything that you can't let go of? A lot of the side effects of this kind of personal perception is that, well, I tend to be really bad with money. I tend to be bad with schedules, and I hope I'm staying on the point of this topic.
No worries. It's fun listening. Just, I mean, it's kind of bringing us all into a reverie. We didn't know you were such a storyteller. So just get to your shadow as you get to it in whatever way you tell your story. Don't worry about it.
Well, are you seeing any hints of shadow in my story thus far?
Well, of course. Do you want some feedback on that, or do you want to
Sure,
find it?
sure, man.
Find it
Something I
yourself?
can build upon.
Well, anytime somebody's, you know, you're immersed in your story, and you know, in a humorous way, you share that it's amazing. I find myself still here. If I got that right, and so what I see is there's a disconnect with that place in yourself, because it's for whatever the reason is, that would be for you to discover. But disconnect is definitely dislocated from is definitely a shadow state. So yeah, I feel it. It's more of a numbness than it is some shadows are like that. They're more like a numbness than they are a burning or a agitation. Or not every shadow is uncomfortable. Some are just, I can't feel it. You know, when we escape, that's a way of numbing or avoiding or that kind of thing. Or just evading, just I'm really not interested, I'd rather not right now kind of thing, if you want to play it as it's not a big deal. But that usually hides a deeper concern with, what if I do, what will happen, and will I lose touch with this great kind of immersion in my story I have, for example. I'm not saying that that's exactly correct, but I'm just saying that it suggests, it implies that kind of narrative in what you're sharing. That's what
my ability to disconnect, and it's not even an active thing. I'm not disconnecting. I'm in a state of disconnection, and then reconnect with the world that I have to engage in and make decisions and carry out tasks. I think it's prevented me from really ever having to deal with any sort of depression. It's not something that I feel. It's just, and I have increasingly recognized that there's depression all around me, that it is something that is affecting a lot of people in my life. So I need to be able to connect, and that's probably the form of a shadow that in order for me to be there for the people that are feeling the depression, quite often they're needing somebody that they can relate to. And if I come across as somebody that just doesn't get it, then that it inhibits my effectiveness. I went to a group, an environmental group that was learning how to sharing training of engaging kitchen table talk with potential voters in the election in Canada that's recently went on, and trying to encourage people to engage with the parties that have a platform for the environment and not the one that doesn't. And we had a moment where we talked about ecological anxiety, and everybody felt very passionately about it. And when it was my turn to speak, I said, well, I don't really have ecological anxiety. I do recognize that we live in a treacherous time, and one of the outcomes, and I don't think there is a good outcome, but I think that we have a best outcome that we can aim for. And if I decide that's what I want, that's what I'm going to aim for, even if I lose hope that it's achievable. This is just choose my destiny and aim for it, there isn't really anything else to do. And that's a sort of a way to, come to terms with the world that's out of our control. You know that you don't have control over it, so you can just apply yourself to it and think of yourself at that moment where you succeed and you get to celebrate, or at that moment where you realize that the world's going into the abyss. I at least can stand on the edge of the abyss, shake my fist, and say, "I told you so."
Hey, Ray.
And that comforts me.
Hey, Ray. You're good at laying it out. So I'm going to invite you to do something that may seem counterintuitive to you at first, but if you go with it, I think you might even enjoy it. Is to create a scenario of a story where you're immersed in a shadow realm. And you can make it up however you like. But it's a shadow realm. And we know what shadows are about. They're about dark things. So if you were the narrator of your own shadow realm, what kind of a shadow realm would you describe?
Frustration would be a part of it. Frustration and repetition in just failing to accomplish anything.
Wow. Now see that it's so funny with each person, because you just nailed it. See, that's what just made my heart drop. So that was easy. I think one of the things that's the most challenging is because I think sometimes we get caught in how other people express their shadows. And I think if you really listen to somebody, they describe themselves very well. And if you really hear what they're saying, then you just have to give them a platform to describe their shadow, however that works for them. And I got what you said. I did get what you said. It hit me in the heart. And I feel whenever a shadow hits right, it always goes right into the heart. And it's usually a sting, but not a painful sting, but just kind of a sweet sting of sadness. And I get it. I get what's in there in you. And that's what we're looking for in this first meeting. I mean, we're going to become super masterful at this after a while. And eventually we'll spend maybe 5 minutes with the shadow, half hour with the gift, and the rest of the time, if we can go all night, with the siddha. In the beginning, it looks like we're going to spend a little more time just finding the shadow, and then hopefully we can get a little bit of the gift, a little bit of the siddha. but that's just how it goes until we get good at it. But as we get better at it, and just ask Melissa, she already knows a bit of this. You'll want to spend more time in the siddhas and the gifts. But so for now, and so beautifully said. And Nolan, if there's anything since we're to you now, if there's anything you wish to unveil about your shadow or not, it's, please. And thank you, Ray, for that ride through your realms.
Yeah, thank everyone. This is incredible. I feel extremely privileged, and I have a lot of confusion and conflict over see, I thought about this whole conversation has stirred up a lot. I'm kind of trying to get back to where I was maybe 30 or 40 minutes ago. A lot of my inner dialogue has to do with, or some of it is I wonder what I've received that I basically ask, what have I received that I haven't earned? And what have I earned or worked for that I have not received? Or there's some like I've had way more, just a completely different life experience than especially my dad. I think of my mom's family was a little more well off. But I have a really hard time even beginning to grasp like an understanding of how much pain he's been through to allow me to be where I am now. And then it feels like I don't know, it's like I don't know how the fuck I got here, you know? And I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of I feel like I've simultaneously experienced pains that doesn't seem like a lot of people around me have experienced, that come with going like really deep inside myself and in to the things around me to feel them very intensely in ways that I can only assume that there's not a lot of people feeling to that extent in that same way. But simultaneously I feel like I have not suffered like so many have before me and so many do now. And I often ask myself, and wonder if there's supposed to be some balance there, and that basically I like have it coming to me. Because part of me just feels like too lucky or something, and like I just haven't I mean, especially with this work we're doing now and with the communities that are developing and realizing what collective intelligence will become.
I would like to say something, if that's okay, to Nolan. I read recently somewhere this quote that says, "No child should carry the burden of their parents or of the adults' choices." And I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I was feeling the weight of your burden and feeling empathy, but I was also feeling, and almost in equal measure, uh, I was feeling proud that you have the ability to have that depth of feeling at your age, because I know most of your generation is going to be very engaged in their playing years. This is the years that where you avoid taking on the adult roles and taking the adult responsibilities. Um, I'm exploring that right now with my own son, who's just gone to school, and he's taking video game design because he figures that's a way that he'd be able to play for the rest of his life. And of course, as a storyteller myself, I'm glad to see that he's taking on that storytelling role in video games. But he and my daughter, who went through art college, she's just finished. I tried to get them to see the world as I see it, and they really, pull the blinds down and don't want to know that they live in an age with such treachery, that they want to believe that they will live to be my age and not have to face this kind of thing, because I didn't have to face it until I'm my age. So it seems fair that everybody should be able to have that perpetual future, and we're confronted with that, and it's again and again I hear people saying that all the failings of our generations, we see the reverse in certain elements of the younger generation. They get it. They're able to recognize a new kind of world where my generation and my parents' generation just assume that we're going to have everything just goes along the way that it always has been. But it's great to see leaders who are aware that the world is theirs to inherit, and they're starting to do the hard work now, and have to be grown-ups before their time. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I got to acknowledge your courage tonight, there, Nolan. What you're exposing. It takes a lot of courage to come out with that. It's not something I think anybody from our older generations could have even conceived of saying several decades ago, because that's like, wow, man, that's a load. At your age, it's like, holy crap. Wow. Makes you think a little. Is there anything else you want to say, or shall we move to the gift? I don't want to keep you in this shadow any longer than we need to. Just to, be loving, but also a bit playful too, even though it is kind of severe. I get you. I feel you.
I think it's a good time to move on.
Thank you. So I want to screen share something here, just to move into the gift phase. And everybody, for a moment, just take a moment and stop and like, I always love this image, like a mother cradling a small child, take the shadow you shared and just bring it deeply into your heart and embrace it. And just love that part of yourself unconditionally, in spite of anything in you that may let the biggest part of you right now be that mother that just takes that into your heart right now and just holds it for a moment, just with all your attention and all your patience and all your understanding and all your care and all your love. Just for a moment. Because we need that power now to move into our gift. And this right here is kind of what I've, it's kind of like my root mandala. I was a draftsman guy, and my mother's an artist, actually. She's a really incredible artist. She went to the Kansas City Art School, so she can paint your face and it looks like you with any medium. But anyway, I'm more of a scientific kind of guy, so I play with my drafting tools and put things together in unusual ways. And this is a compilation of the central part there with all the colors coming down, that says monadic, atmic, buddhic, causal, mental, astral, etheric, and physical are all our bodies. There are different layers of our overall being, the totality of our being. And that represents my own contribution to this Enneagram. This is an Enneagram, by the way, those of you who are familiar with Enneagrams. And this is the right way to use one, not as a typology thing, but as a progression of events that lead from one thing to the next, with certain openings at certain points that allow influences from the outside to come in and help it move along when it gets slowed down, which happens to any plan, no matter what the best intentions are, if you don't ask for help from outside. So it's in spirals because it's also based on the I Ching mandala, which is from China, the hexagrams. Some of you may know the I Ching, but it's also our 64 genetic codons. It's the same exact thing. That's what each of these are. And every single one of our codons has a siddha, a gift, and a shadow. And it's broken up into 8 by 8. There's 8 basic trigrams, and those 8 basic trigrams are modified by 8 other trigrams, one trigram on the bottom, one on the top. It creates 64 different possibilities of our genetic codons. We have all of them within us. And the true emphasis of awakening in the path is to tap into all 64 eventually. I think this just came out naturally of me after 26 years after my awakening, because I think I have tapped into all 64. And every single one of these areas, the numbers, if you look just at the edge of the circle, you'll see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. One is here, 2, 3, anyway, like that around. Each one of these is a different transmission of bringing, it is a way of practically grounding the spiritual experience into your everyday life, as I experienced it in my life. And these were the most profound influences. And I don't know, I started doing this like decades ago, and eventually it kind of coalesced into this this mandala. And I actually literally go through all 64 of these every day in the morning, not only when I do my still form, but also my movement form is based on these 64 hexagrams. Bagua is based on the 64 hexagrams, and also the Sun, Moon, Lightning 8 standing form has each of these 8 within each one of the 8 mudras that I do. And I go through each of the siddhas, gifts, and shadows, each one of them in the standing form every morning, just so you start to get an idea of what I'm trying to, what I am bringing to the table here. And this is something we can, you know, if as we go on in these vegan synergy meditations, we can really open this up, just like Jamin does such a good job of opening all his diagrams up. We can play with opening this up slowly. Right now, I just want to expose it to you. Hopefully you can read some of this stuff. I know it's not perfect and it needs to actually be put in, you know, proper type and fonts and stuff. But each thing has, basically it's broken up into different centers on the human design body graph, which has actually 9 centers as opposed to 7. Which at some point we'll go through also. In fact, one of these areas right here, where it goes from purple all the way down into dark red, this area here, is about this one here, gene keys, which is a higher expression of human design, which is a whole new way of doing astrology through your genetics. And it was received in a vision over 8 days, where a guy, he had no sleep, and this voice talked to him and taught him this whole thing called human design. Pretty radical, but that's one of them. And then there's other ones like the diamond work and Zen Dzogchen transmission, my own Taoist alchemy stuff, which I do every morning, Gurdjieff fourth way transmission, my teacher from India, The Way of the White Clouds, very beautiful stuff. Veganism, I even call one of these facets is vegan activism. That's very important to me. And then also the Flower of Life teachings, the Merkaba vehicle. So each one of these is a very profound teaching, and each one of them is related in a very specific way to 8 of the hexagrams out of the 64. Like, for instance, the Flower of Life is related to the water hexagram octave in the I Ching. So all 8 of the water hexagrams in the I Ching, I take, and it goes from the highest expression of who we are, the monadic body, and then into the atmic and into the Buddhic, right through the sequence. And it's just a way of being creative with what you've got in your life. So this here is my gift, I guess you could say, to the world, and it's just really fun to open up, and eventually I look forward to sharing a lot of this with you. And even though we're not doing it on purpose, every time somebody shares a shadow, a gift, and a siddha, it's amazing. Especially like you did the other day, Melissa, you were going right through a shadow, gift, and a siddha as if you knew this chart that I'm showing right now, because you went right through the shadow and the gift and the siddha that literally, you know, are connected in this I Ching, you know, our genetic codons. And it's just funny how people they know this stuff intuitively, even if they don't study it. And so it's just something that it's been really fun to put together. And I just wanted to share this right now and not get into it too much right now, because it would just be overly mental until we've had a little bit of grounding and working with real experience of our shadows and our gifts and siddhas a little more. But I felt like just kind of opening the space up and actually sharing my gift. You know, from, you know, I shared what's holding me back, and this is what I could, this could be unpacked for, you know, quite hundreds of vegan synergy meditations. And and it will be, and it probably won't be like in the old way of teaching, where I'll point at that and go, that's what that is, and that's what that is, and it'll probably be more like, just as we share more and more of this stuff, it'll just open itself up, and we'll find a way of understanding it. Because I'm always blown away too by sharing this stuff and how it wants to reveal itself. It's more about how it wants to reveal itself than how I think it should reveal itself. But it's also even has a correlation to the 8 limbs of yoga, because this first one here is about samadhi, the second one is about meditation, The third is about concentration. The fourth is about contemplation. The fifth is about pranayama, which is breathing. The sixth is about purifications. The seventh is about observations. And the eighth is about postures. And it starts with, it also has periods in my life where it's literally initiated over since the last 26 years, I was taken through each of these areas and introduced to each of these places in myself. And it was very interesting. Right now in the eighth part here, it's about bringing it in the world and the, as I call it, the labyrinthine sequence of unfolding of my aim into the world, which is pretty much how it always goes. It's a sequence that's pretty labyrinthic for each of us. We may have some idea how we're going to get from point A to point B, but how it actually goes is quite takes its own course. Very interesting, over hill and dale and all kinds of things. But anyway, I just wanted to share that for a moment, and just for a little bit of inspiration. I hope that we can each maybe share a little bit of, this is what I put my all into every day. This is literally what I put my all into every day. And I have tons of notes on all of these areas that are in other parts of my phone and my computer and my iPad and all over the place. And, but it's all very organized. It's just, I get inspirations all day long when I look into these different areas. So anyway, that's just, so now you kind of maybe get the atmosphere of where the gift is coming from. I always like to throw us into an experience and then afterwards say, well, that was what the gift was about. Instead of saying, let's get into our gift and try and push people into it, doesn't really work. You have to kind of jump into something, give people an experience, and then say, now that's the energy of that's one example of the energy of shifting into, you know, what I put my all into every day.
You know, the Earth has 9 planetary boundaries that are arranged in a radial graph similar to what you have.
I could imagine. It must be interesting. Yes, I believe it.
That is a beautiful diagram drawing. It reminds me of a whirling dervish. That's what I was getting from it. It's really awesome, Dharmendra. I love it. It's really great. I have an image of what my gift is. This isn't. Can you all see that?
Oh yeah. It's got all sorts of writing in there in the mandala, yeah. Right? Yeah, that's a really cool thing. I saw that the other day. You posted that. It had my attention for a while. Pretty neat.
It's a commission I worked on for Island Shakespeare Festival. It's a Shakespearean theater troupe here on the island of Whidbey, and they perform Dante's Inferno. And I actually work with Dante's text a lot in my art, and it's where Virgil comes to Dante when he wants to commit suicide, and he's showing him what happens to suicides.
Wow.
And so the little bird, half human, half bird figures are the harpies that tear at the flesh of those souls who've committed suicide and have become sort of like dried out, tortured trees. And the text is part of this beautiful quote written by Dante, the one part I really love, which talks about the dark night of the soul. And it goes something like this: in the middle of the journey of my life, I found myself in a dark wood where the true way was fully lost.
Jason, can you put yourself on mute? We hear you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, my bad. I thought I tried to turn it off and then I didn't know it.
Cool.
And then Dante, so this is Dante and Virgil here standing on a cloud. And then the angel in the upper left, that is Beatrice, who is his muse, who is always there with him, guiding him, and takes him on a journey to see how the universe really works, which is really fascinating. So we're talking about these spheres again. And one of the spheres that she reveals to him is where humans come to the earth and fulfill their lives, and they're good citizens, but they never are of service or in service to a greater good. And so they go to kind of purgatory place because they haven't fulfilled this human role of serving the greater good, which I kind of feel like that's where we're at as a species on the planet. You know, we're transforming out of just having this good life to serving a greater purpose or higher purpose.
The gift is always about for the benefit of all beings everywhere. Always about that. And just a technical description real quick. The shadow is always about take it into your heart and transform it, the heart of transformation, like the Buddhist meditation Tong Len, where you take in the suffering of others and breathe out compassion. That's the shadow. And then the siddha is always your unique contribution to the whole. After all of that said and done, what is your essence going to express? That is a gift to the whole, you know. So just because you mentioned the thing about for the greater good, that's the gift is always about. So you see, you did it again intuitively. That's the whole theme of the gift is about the greater good. Always is. Beautiful. And we got to move it along now because I have less than an hour and I don't want to miss the siddha. So if everybody could do like Melissa and I just did, spend maybe 5 minutes on a gift sharing, that would be great. Deborah, did you get to see my diagram? Or did you come in after I shared my screen shared my diagram?
I came in while you were sharing it.
Oh, did you see the picture?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good enough. I just wanted to make sure you got the visual. That was all that was about, to kind of shift out of shadow and into something a little more into our gift, which kind of fills us with breath and life. And yeah, okay, let's see. Let's get inspired. Yeah. Anyway.
Can I say something about, I'll go back and listen to the recording to hear what you said, but I did hear that, you know, you're talking about human design. Mm-hmm. And I know a little bit about human design, and actually what human design says about the year 2027 is what really connected for me when I heard Silas talking about 2026.
Isn't it funny how that, me too, totally. It's like, isn't that funny how that, if we don't get past the 2026, there will be no 2027. It's kind of obvious.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, here's talking about what's happening in the astral that's going to support this shift. And then here's talking about what's happening on the ground that is going to like prepare our humanity for this shift in the astral and how it all comes together. And I went, yes, okay, that's where I need to be. So.
So that's how you found, is that how you found your gift? Because we're on the gifts now too, and I want to stay focused now into the gifts. But yeah, that's good. Yeah, I've been into human design for like 14 years. So yeah, so deeply, that's one of my transmissions I love. So if you want to share your gift, you can, or you can just wait until you feel like it. But who would like to share their gift next? Because now we're getting into the inspirational and something a little bit more like fun and leading us toward the siddha, which of course will be mind-blowing, but one step at a time.
I'm happy to jump in.
Cool.
And please coach me along, Dharmendra. So the maximum expression of my gift that I can articulate is what it's at the present moment, which is the current conceptualization of collective intelligence, as you and I and Nolan and Melissa and Jason and all of us have been co-creating and co-envisioning, and we're so close to actually putting together the final connecting rods to make it all work. And I'll just describe it in the following terms. Imagine that, participating humanity, say, 100 million of us or so, are collectively participating in, observing, connected to a million different conversations. Think of them as a million lanes on a freeway. Instead of a 4-lane freeway, a million-lane freeway, each one being a different conversation. Each conversation is transcribed. The transcriptions are made public, indexed, searchable, and you can therefore have access to any of these conversations you want You can change lanes, jump into a conversation, participate in it, contribute to it. And just like we're doing right here, this is literally one lane, this Zoom video conference they're in. This is one lane. Now imagine a million of these. And we're just popping around from lane to lane very intentionally, seeking to where we can maximize our contributions, or maybe we need to learn something before we can then go to another lane and apply what we learned to that. And collectively, through all these million lanes, co-create all the solutions that we need to save as much of life on Earth as we possibly can, so that we can get to 2027 and 2028 and all the years beyond, and bring all of our brother and sister species along with us, and ecosystems and life-supporting systems. And we can look back on these dark times and say, whoosh, I'm sure glad we got out of that mess. And move forward to the utopia that is our birthright, the birthright of all of life on Earth. That's why we're here, to get out of this darkness and into the light, where we can jump into your mandala, Dharmendra, and say, wow, I want to be in that lane for a while. And, you know, you're just going, wow, you know, and just like cruising throughout and unpacking it. And
it pretty much is like that for me. You said that well.
So, you know, my gift is, you know, whatever came before, I just feel like it was to bring me to this moment now, so that together with you all, we could co-create this platform, this culture, these million lanes, and everything that needs to be built, which is, the Lego blocks are there. We just need to snap them together. And my gift is basically being this Pied Piper to help bring us all together, to snap together the Lego blocks, so that this vision will be real and true and actually in existence. And that's just the beginning. Once we have a million lane freeway, where we can go from there, oh my goodness. I mean, we've done a lot of envisioning of that, but I just really want to focus on getting to the million lane freeway and all the functionality I've just described succinctly. And I'm going to pass the baton to whoever's next.
Just want to give a quick interlude for Jessica's sake. Jessica, I don't know if you have your chat window open, but if you scroll all the way to the top, there's 3 questions that we were all looking into tonight. And we started with actually the third one, the shadow, and now we're on the second one, the gift. And then we're going to end this evening, if you're still here, with the first question, which has to do with the Siddha and life beyond life. So just so you can at least have some kind of bead on what we're all doing here, we're midway into the gift area now, and moving out of the shadow, which we were plodding through, which is always quite a plod to get through the shadow. But we have to love that place in us, because that's where a lot of our power is trapped up. So anyway, just for your sake, Jessica, unless if you had already done that and you already knew that, great. But if you didn't, just so you can zero in and get a beat on what the theme is for this evening. And thank you, Jamin. I always get a rush out of your gift is awesome, and I always get a rush out of when your gift is like, you really shine in your gift. There's no question about it. You rip. It's why I think it's safe to say it's why we're all here and being brought together and wanting to head this way. As you know, that's why I call you the master of ceremonies. You know, you know, for sure. So anyway, that was full. That was heart filling. Thank you. Who else would like to share their gift? As you can see, this is a lot more fun than shadow work. And it also, remember too, when we're in our gifts now, because when we're in our shadows, we're all stuck in our head. That's why it plods along. When we're in our gifts, we're in our hearts. So everybody, make sure you have some part of you connected to everybody else's heart here. However you do that, is a little light inside of them, right near their heart, or an energy field that as a web you feel connected to. Any way you do it, we'll all pick it up, because now we're all starting to become one synchronized, multifaceted, you know, uniquely reflecting, each reflection uniquely from all of us, kind of hyper intelligent thing that's starting to evolve here. And that'll become more clear when we get to the Siddha. Even if it doesn't become more clear, it will become more clear, even if you don't think so. So anyway, anybody else who's next on the gift?
I guess I'll jump in. Well, just recently, my gift, or relatively recently, my gift has had a very intimate relationship with Jamin's gift. And I am really excited to be able to share, like, I'm really excited to be here with you guys, and I'm really excited about the potential, about all these other people that are going to be joining in the conversations that are going to be happening. Like, I don't know if this is totally getting at the gift or not, but basically, I guess at this point, I'm very focused on being prepared for when this wave hits of attention and then people coming into this conversation space. And I just want to be like a personality for people to like come together out of love through, and like help bring people together and start having conversations that were really difficult to have however long ago, but now we're kind of like breaking into this time where it's getting way easier. And I'm really looking forward to facilitating or like helping bring more of those conversations about. And I'm super happy to be a part of all of these conversations that are happening now.
And that's totally what the gift is about. It's one of the things about that I've many times referred to the gift as your future now, where you take and open up a space where your future is how you're feeling now. And that's how you start to bring your future into the now, is by, if you've heard what I said, your future is that vision you just described is how you're feeling now. Let that at least be your feeling experience now. And practice that as often as possible. That's how you manifest. That's how you bring things into the world. So yes, you're intuitively right on the dead centering essence, my man, of what the gift is about. So thank you. Yes, well done. Okay. So whoever, Ray or Deborah, if you feel like sharing of your gift future now space, or already occurring now space, whatever doesn't matter. I mean, just, you know.
I mentioned in my little story about myself that my relationship with truth has been a recurring theme, whether it's in the form of fiction that tells the capital T truth, or whether it's journalism that's not telling any sort of truth whatsoever. So the time that I've spent in the television and film industry, I've been reflecting on it a lot and thinking this is really where I'm able to contribute to the conversation, the broader conversation about the destiny of our planet and the resistance that has been put up that seems determined that we should fail in this quest to save ourselves. It sounds absurd, but this is our reality. As I engage with activists, I see that there's a lot of people who have seen this truth, and then, you know, it dawns on them, and they engage it wholeheartely. Sometimes so ashamed of the way that they were before when they were living in a lie that they're having trouble dealing with it, that they're maybe a little bit too aggressive in their activism, and forgetting what it's like to be, you know, just the regular broken human that has a lot of the wrong things as priorities. It's important for all of us to really cement that moment before we had any sort of enlightenment, if we're able to reach out to anybody else and help them find it themselves, the confusion, the ways that they have, the fear that they feel. Usually it's so rooted in fear. And I'm discovering as I'm searching for this truth that there are so many places where there's shades of gray. There's so many contradictions that every activist, every person who's awakened to their responsibility to be part of this narrative, there's so many contradictions that weigh on people so badly that that's part of my, while I'm seeking for truth, I'm also expressing that there's a lot of areas in between that they don't have to be so cut and dried, that it causes division amongst people who are basically trying to accomplish the same thing. And so there's, get people excited and get people to calm down. So that these are all skills that we need to have a cohesive movement that's truly global. If we're having a global movement, we want this thing to be that big. It can't be a refinement of activism down to the 10 rules that make you the perfect activist. There's going to be very imperfect activists that are leading the charge in many different ways. It's good to be able to understand that big picture. So I'd like to help people understand that, and that's the gift that I want to share.
The big picture, revelation. Nice.
The many big pictures, but
yes,
one's the big one too.
No. I like the way you answered that. You took it up a notch. That's your genius. Good. Yeah, that is definitely your gift.
Can I just chime in for 20 seconds? I love what you said, Ray, because it's like, each of us is a broken, frayed thread, not a perfect, titanium thread, unbreakable, no.
I learned that from the evangelicals.
And what we're creating here together is the loom, which will weave us all together into this united, integrated humanity that is our destiny. And that's what we all need, and we dream of at night. And that's where we're going. So thank you, Ray, for articulating that so beautifully.
Yummy. I want some of that. Can I have some of that?
All you need.
Hey man, some of us aren't frayed too, okay? So we got some frayed, some not frayed. Some are very frayed, some are just a little frayed. Some are very afraid.
You were saying frayed and afraid, right?
I'm playing with you.
That was a good play on words. But that is the root of all shadow, is fear. So you hit the nail on the head on that one. That's and love is the root of all your gifts. So just so we have another little context to play in. Deborah, do you have a gift that you're going to reveal to us?
Sure, and I'm open to coaching on, just because I was out for a little while, so making sure that I'm doing it right.
Oh, well, it's that.
It's
that thing you're bringing your all to, and we'll know it's true because you will do something like what Ray just did when I made a comment, and he took what I said and applied his gift and opened it up, even beyond what I said. So that's like a correct application of the gift. Or like what Jamin does when he starts weaving his tales, and we're all just like, wow, yeah, this is like a roller coaster ride of, wow, yeah, okay. Or like Nolan, who's like the gift from the future. He's the future, and he's kind of leaning into us and going, look what I got here, man. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but I know it's different than where you guys are coming from, and it's kind of interesting. You want to check this out? I love to play. Am I giving you some, maybe, because I'm trying to give you a feel, not so much an exact, mental description, but more of a feel for what I'm picking up in the fields. Or like Melissa, all of a sudden we're in Peter Pan magical land, and it's like, holy cow, it's Purgatorio and Inferno and Paradiso, and we're in Dante's Commedia, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, wow. But for real, because you look at that picture and you just you're almost like there in it, because it's so, you look into it, there's like a luminosity to it, like, whoa, where is that? Like through the looking glass, Alice through the looking glass, in Wonderland number, second version, in Through the Looking Glass kind of thing. But anyway, it's magical. It's magical. We're entering into the gift. It's more magical. And just tune into all of our hearts too. That's what I was saying. Just feel all of our hearts, because we're all in the same heart right now. We're sharing the same heart space. It'll get even more fun when we move to the Siddha, and you'll see.
Okay. Well, I think that one of my gifts is seeing the reflection of, in the microcosm and the macrocosm, and that, personal transformation for universal harmony, knowing that everything affects everything else and everything is a mirror that we can look at to see ourselves more clearly and make the changes that we need to make in order to make the world a better place on the whole. And I think that's where my biggest passion is, helping people to maybe to understand themselves, to learn more about themselves in order to make the changes that will align them with their highest light, their connection with source, so that, and because when we do that, that is what helps to align the whole, the masses with a state that is going to give us sustainability and peace as a whole, and connection.
Yeah, that is definitely a gift. That's probably the first time I really met you. That took me somewhere. That's what gifts do. They take you somewhere. At the beginning of it, are you familiar with the metaphor of Indra's net of mirrors? Indra's net. It's a Buddhist metaphor for one of the devas from the deva realm, and he's got this net, a magical net that's made up of mirrors, and every mirror in it signifies an individual in the creation, and that's capable of reflecting every other mirror in the creation through itself. That's where you took me to in the beginning of your story. So
yeah,
there's definitely something in what you just said. And to step into the next, and beautiful, thank you. And to step into the next phase, Evan, Jessica, and Carla, if I could invite you just to listen this evening, because we're already way deep into this and we've already gone through, and that's just fine. You'll get something just listening. And welcome. And,
thank you.
We've already been through the shadow work. If you open up your chat window and go to the right and scroll all the way to the top, you'll see the three questions. Yeah, that's kind of a good one of it, the net of mirrors. And you scroll all the way to the top of the chat box, you'll see the three questions that we have been working on tonight. We actually went from the bottom up. We started at 3, went to 2, and now we're going to go to 1. And the funny thing about hang on one second. I'm just going to unmute my microphone instead of holding the space. But I set it up on purpose, where the first question about if this was your last moment of your life, would you be at peace with, we're going to apply that now, because to step into the Siddha is always to go through the death process. You literally it means going through a threshold. Once you get a deeper understanding and you've had a deeper experience of what meditation is about, you come to the direct realization that death is just a possible state of experience of the totality of your being. And it truly is. That's why we can have mystical death experiences like I've been through, and actually go through the death process without losing your body. Because that wasn't the experience you needed to go through with the death experience. It was not the one of losing your body, it was the one of losing your ego. Or losing, it's not that I don't have an ego, I use it because I function in the world. So now it's a focusing tool. Before, it was the arch nemesis that kept me from realizing myself. So now it's a friendly tool that's useful. So what we're going to do now is step into that threshold, and through that threshold into the place where we allow ourselves to go beyond belief and just step into a bigger moment. I always start the Siddha experience with, I open present moment to the higher and ask for help from above in opening the present moment. And what I mean by opening the present moment is that normally when we take a breath, it takes about 3 seconds. And in that 3 seconds, we have the possibility of certain types of thoughts, feelings, and anybody who has worked with your breathing, if you slow it down, your thoughts can open up, your feelings can open up. So if we take and apply that idea of opening the present moment way up to where we can tune into a being that might take a breath in 3 or 4 days or 3 or 4 months or 3 or 4 years or 3 or 4 lifetimes, we can get a whole different sense of what it feels like, or what the thought might be, or what a sensation of movement is in a being like that. And that's what it means to step into your Siddha. It is to step into a place that's universal. Because remember I said, the shadow is personal. It's a self-image that's been imposed upon your essence that isn't true, but it helped you survive the experience under pressure that you were going through as a child to get to be a grown-up. But now, and then as you step into your gift, you balance that with something called, I'm tapping into my essential nature through my creative genius. Well, when you step into the Siddha, now you're going to do it on purpose. It's not like you're waiting for inspiration. Like an artist, you're actually, like a meditator, going to step straight into inspiration, intentionally on purpose, and access it and open a present moment where we all literally become a different aspect of a higher being. Somebody's the brain, somebody's the liver, somebody's the heart. Not literally, but just to give you an idea, those beings aren't made up the same way we are. It's different, but we're visiting their chamber. They live in chambers in the labyrinth of creation. And we're visiting them and they get to visit our houses in the labyrinth of planet Earth. And we literally make an exchange of substances. And they feed on our heat and our energy, and we feed on their light and their consciousness, and it's an exchange. And if we do it right, tomorrow you're going to feel fabulous instead of drained because of this experience. And also, if we're doing it right, the temperature will drop in the room around you, because it means we're in contact with higher consciousness. That's how you know you're in contact with higher consciousness, because my room's starting to go cold right now. So, and it reminded me, oh yeah, I got to remind them about the temperature, it drops. Because when we step into it, it's just there's a multidimensional array of possibilities of expression that we can each share right now. And I ask everybody, if it doesn't mess things up, I don't know that much about Zoom yet, but if it doesn't mess anything up, everybody can take their mic off mute, so that at any moment, if something comes through you, you can just express it. Now we can go beyond talking stick formality and just get into talking stick maturity, and just talk when you feel a moment is opening through you, where something is coming through, because we're all at this point hollow bamboos for existence to move through us and play a note or two. I'm just giving some metaphors for what we're tuning into. So what I'm going to do now that I've opened space to the higher, I'm going to tell you what that opening to the higher is. There's always on the earth at any one moment a particular presiding, and I'm going to use the word angel, but do not think of an angel in terms of Christianity or any of that stuff. It is a higher form of consciousness that can organize intelligence for a specific purpose that's creative. That's what an angel does. That's what we're connecting into. That's why it's going to inspire us, and when we come out of it, it's going to go into our gift and down into our shadow and do things and make our life different and actually change stuff, like Melissa was sharing early on before we started recording this whole thing at the beginning of the meeting. She was sharing some of the things that were moving through her as a result of the first 2 of these kind of immersions that she's already been into. So that's what we're doing. We're asking for the angel of the moment to come and bless all our presences and allow us to be part of its universal experience right now, for the purpose of a mutually beneficial exchange of substances, where the angelic presence will learn about bioforms, because they're always looking to learn about that since they aren't one. And we are going to learn about higher consciousness as a collective accelerated intention to experience. So you can allow yourself to wake up a little bit more and also still your body a little bit more and become a little more silent at the same time, and also allow the intensity of your feeling to become more defined and yet more relaxed and more released at the same time. And you can get a sense of your senses just kind of opening out and spreading out into your environment and kind of becoming like bigger and more and like a part of your environment. And just like the Indra's net of mirrors kind of sense of things, so that your reflection is being reflected back to everything else simultaneously as you are and everything else is to you. Hope I said that right. And at the same time, through the connection now is in our bellies. It's literally like we are the same belly right now. It's not even like we're sharing our hearts together. We're like the same belly in the same center, sharing the same experience. But we're each unique aspects, because the funny thing about higher consciousness is it can be one, but it can also be highly defined in each of its separate functioning aspects, even in the unity. The unity does not take away from the uniqueness of each one of us in the space and the function we're bringing and performing by literally being what we are in the space. What we are in the space right now is our function, whatever that might be. And it's funny, we're 8 people right now. We could actually, like the diagram I was sharing, we could each be one of the hexagrams of the I Ching. And those are earth, mountain, water, wind, thunder, fire, lake, and heaven. And it doesn't really matter which one you are, you know which one you are. And I'll give you some hints. Earth is about receptive, and what it's receptive to is what the higher intelligence we're connecting into right now. That's what Earth does. It's your higher self. So it's the direct connection to the reflection we're getting from the universe of us as one unified, single, although very differentiated and multidimensional presence. That's Earth, the receptive. Mountain is about stillness. We see the solution once the muddy water calms down and the pool becomes a clear reflective surface. We look into it and we see what we need to see. It's reflected accurately. That's the mountain, stillness, the solution. Water is overcoming obstacles. So that's about inner strength and the capacity to face difficulties and move through them. That's what water is. It's the abysmal, and it's moving through the abysmal. Wind is flexible obedience, action in harmony with the times. It doesn't mean like the herd mentality, you just go along with what everybody else is doing like a program robot. It means that you bring whatever is needed most, that is your unique skill, that isn't out of whack with what's going on in the general world around us, and it actually brings some benefit somewhere. That's the wind. Thunder is word and deed and accord, congruence. What you say, you do. What you do, you think. It's all lined up. You don't just frivolously say things. And this is all applied to this space right now. So remember, if one of these hits you, just assume it. Just assume it. Just own it for the rest of the time we're together, because we're in the siddha now. And if you get that, whatever that one is, you know it, just hold it. Just hold the space for it. Hold the grace for it, whatever one hits you. Some of you could be doing 2 of the same, and we might be missing one. I don't care. We're not going to break them down tonight, because that would be an all-nighter. We'd have to do an all-nighter for that, and I don't have an all-nighter available tonight. So, and then fire is inner and outer awareness. So that's truly like the Indra's net of mirrors applied from the inside into your inner mirrored world, and that reflects what's in the outer mirrored world. Everything from the outside reflecting into everything into your inside and back out again. And I'm kind of expanding and sort of metaphoricalizing the definition so it can play with your imagination and you can let it take you somewhere a little bit. And the higher consciousness is helping me to do that, because I certainly can't figure this stuff out, and I don't even know what I'm going to say next. So when I go here, I haven't since I started this Siddha process. The lake hexagram is joy and following the Tao. So that's obviously you're connected to your essence, and you're relaxed, and you're moving with that energy, like Melissa. You're in the Tao, and you're just moving with it. Melissa described a lot of the aspects of that tonight earlier, and everything the way she expressed herself in tonight's meeting is very much about joy and fall. I'm just following my Tao, even though she didn't say it that way. That's what she said. True, Melissa? Am I correct on that?
It's funny you're saying that, Dharmendra, because when you were describing this being, angelic being, whose breath could take a week or a year or a month or many lifetimes, I suddenly saw like this genie or this being that was made of light, and every time you spoke, he'd get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it kept expanding, 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 and all I could feel was joy. I went, wow. Joy.
See? Right. See, once you get in the Siddha, there's really no lies anymore. All the lies are gone. It's either yes or neutral. There is no negative in the Siddha. That's how Siddha works. And then heaven is the creative. What are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the planet? What are you owning? What are you putting out? What are people getting from you? And that's in the material world. The creative is always in the world around us. That's where we're creators. We can manipulate material world. We should not manipulate living beings, though. No. Bad. Living beings are subjects. We don't mess with subjects. They have their own right to be however they wish. We can only support that and grow together in harmony. Objects, it's okay. We can manipulate. And plants we can eat because they don't feel pain. Okay? But just don't know where that came from. But anyway, that's the creative. So anyone you feel like stepping into, I always feel my most comfortable in what I call the way of the white clouds, right there in divinity as the earth, just receiving directly from my higher self and bringing it down into, but anyway, it's like, but I can do any of them, and eventually everybody can get comfortable. It's always nice when we have a good number too. 5 and 8 are really good numbers, because 5 you can do elements, and 8 you can do hexagrams. And everybody, when you start to open it up and play with it a bit, and it's really fun. It's like if I look at Deborah right now, she's right in the middle, and for some reason I don't know why I see her in water overcoming obstacles impeccably, and I don't know if that's true or not, or if she's in that place or not, or if she's even relating to that. But I'll just throw that out as my projection. It could be a total projection, or it could be half accurate. Or you could say, no, Dharmendra, I was actually over here in fire or doing something like this with my inner and outer awareness and all those mirrors you were talking about. But I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just a way to start a conversation and open something up and provoke you maybe to share something of which one of those hexagrams was interesting sounding to you, kind of thing. And you don't have to, because this is just the Siddha, and you only want to come out with your truth. Nothing here is a problem. We can even look at all the shadows we've already been through and have a giggle now, because it's like, look at what I'm doing down there in my shadows. It's just like, okay, I can point out this, and this, and this. The hard part is remembering to bring all that with you when you're here down into that shadow. But anyway, never mind. We'll get into that stuff later more and more. So anyway, it's fun. It's fun. It's always fun. You should feel very inspired, light, and zippy when you're in the Siddha, and it shouldn't be serious at all. Although it's very contained and very restrained and very calm and very collected, it's still very light and playful and alive and juicy. See, it's a paradox. It brings all the paradoxes together. The gift and the shadow have melted together and merged and transcended themselves. And we're in the Siddha now. It's kind of interesting like that.
I enjoyed listening to you describe all of them, because I was feeling that, wow, okay, yeah, I could be in this one. Yeah, I could relate to that one. Yeah, I can relate to that one. And overcoming obstacles is something I've, yes, definitely become very good at, and navigating and, not seeing so much as obstacles as, okay, opportunities or whatever, or just what is, and relating in different ways. So yeah, it was all the fire, yes, and the earth, yes, and
yeah. Would you guys like to hear the siddhas of the primary hexagram of each of the, because there's 8 variations of each hexagram, so you got 64, but each one has a major note that's the earth of earth instead of the earth of heaven or the earth of water or the earth of wind. And for the earth, the major note is unity. Believe it or not, for the earth, which is our higher self's connection to the source, is unity. The earth. That's where we're purely receptive, absolutely receptive. That's the siddha of earth. And the siddha of mountain is, of course, is funny enough, that's the only one the actual name is the same. It's stillness. It's like when you settle into your inner stillness and there's no movement at all. It's fascinating because you will see in that stillness so much movement. You will become a pure movement. That's what happens when you enter total stillness. You will become like you are like you're pure flow, pure flux. And if you've ever experienced that before, it's a gas. To experience yourself like a cloud, like literally like a cloud that's just with no form, and you're just flowing and it's it's ecstatic, but in a really powerful, grounded, but soft and full sort of way. And then water, the siddha of water is devotion. The siddha of water is devotion, which is that flow from devotion means you're absolutely like a servant of the divine. That's what I see as devotion. You are a servant of the divine. You're truly a vehicle for the divine's expression to the planet. That's what service is to me. Wind's siddha is clairaudience. That means you are connected with the vibrations of everything from the smallest inner to the greatest outer, and everything in between. That's clairaudience to me. You can hear within and you can hear without. And it may not be a sound. It may just be a frequency or a vibration or a movement within you that causes you to feel in a certain way or whatever. But it's also what connects you to being in harmony with the times, as the theme of the wind was. The siddha can go right into what the theme was also. Like devotion is the only way to overcome obstacles. It's the absolute best way. It's the most powerful way to overcome any obstacle. Because if you're truly devoted to the divine, there's nothing will stop you. So there is no obstacle anymore. And then the thunder, word and deed and accord, the siddha is awakening. Think of thunder cracking right over your head. You're going to wake up. You're going to be totally awake. Boom! And it's that shattering. It's that shattering effect that just stops everything and throws you into total lucidity and absolute grokking of your moment, what you're in and everything around you, and you eat it totally in that moment. You just go pop. Whoa, okay. Thunder. And then fire, inner and outer awareness. The siddha of fire is, let's see what fire. Oh, rapture. Rapture. Oh. Being how to call it? Being overtaken by something indescribable. Rapture. That's fire. And if you think of how fire moves, that's how your being becomes when you're overtaken by something indescribable in a very beautiful way. You literally become like an offering up, like fire offering up itself and just becoming more and more refined the higher it goes up. And then lake, the siddha of lake, the overtone siddha of lake is, bliss. Bliss is the lake. So it's totally contained like a lake. When you're totally contained and nothing is leaking, and you are completely holding the grace of your own being, you experience bliss. That is blissful. It's the most yummy you can taste of yourself is bliss. Bliss is, think of it as the tastiest way you could taste yourself. That's bliss. And the siddha of heaven is beauty. What else? What else could it be? But it's the beauty of the physical, of the material world. You'd have to think of like paradise, and what paradise might be like. And some of you, like me, might be lucky enough to have had a little, tiny, teeny little immersion in it. just because you're crazy enough to step into things you shouldn't step into because you had crazy wisdom masters who told you you could. But
I just
so
have, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just have a really quick story to share. It's an experience I had with a student on Tuesday from Burma. Her father was killed just before her birth in the Karen uprising, which is the longest civil war known in the world, and it's still ongoing. And so I was working with her. She had written a poem about her father, and she was full of grief and, you know, tears welling up in her eyes as we were talking about her experience and missing her father. And I asked her, because I was doing the visual arts part of this project with the students, and I asked her, well, what does your father look like to you? What are you envisioning? And then I went to her poem and I started reading it out loud. Oh, she said to me, my father, people tell me my father was strong and kind. And then I went to her poem and I started to read it out loud. And I said, I read her words. I said, your father was strong and kind. What does that look like to you? And she said to me, his name means mountain. And so I said, let's draw a mountain. And we drew a mountain. And then she said to me, and my name means waterfall. And I said, well, let's draw a waterfall coming from the mountain. And I said, you see, you're connected with your father. He's not here in the physical with you, but he's here with you. He's all around you. He is the mountain from which you have you have come from that mountain, and you are connected. And then she drew a pool of water, the lake, which held her emotions. And then she got joy. She got bliss.
Wow. That's really groovy. Also, in the I Ching, the fourth hexagram is a waterfall coming out of a mountain, and its siddha, by the way, is forgiveness. And then forgiveness is the way that you, basically the way you accelerate your evolution, because the minute you forgive, you're free. You've been freed of that net that's held you. So we're kind of getting into the answer now about if you want to solve what's holding you back, that it's forgiveness. It's funny, it's coming right at the end, and we weren't even looking for it. And so many times when we do these things, that's what happens, because the divine really cares about us, and when we open to it, it takes us seriously. And that's what the divine is doing to all of us right now. By the way, what Melissa's doing, that's because we are like little babies in that place, you know. And when we leave here, we'll be more like little kids than little babies, and we'll move on and we'll keep evolving. And that's what happens to all of us. Anyway, we'll get into that one time too, where we can open up that, because I've seen a lot of what most people call the afterlife, that when you can start doing this stuff and get really good at it, you can just look right into it. You don't have to wait. And you can go up as many levels as you want that most people may not experience, who are taught, who before they left this world didn't get outside of the time trap that the mind keeps everybody collectively locked into. Then you can realize you can skip times, and it's just all about frequency, and you can go all the way back to source, which most people aren't supposed to get to for 3 incalculable eons, as the Buddhists say, but also agreed with in the real Christianity that they don't talk about, which is taught in things like your Urantia and stuff like that. But anyway, but you can do it also, you know, while you're still in your body. You can do it all while you're still in your body before you leave it. That's the challenge to be a Buddha. That's what I challenge all of you to. That's what I want all of us to become a group of. That's what accelerated collective evolution is. So we're starting to wrap it up now and synthesize a little bit. We're starting to we've touched the deity. The deity's touched us, obviously. We went into the hexagrams a bit, and everybody got a flavor of it. And like I said, when we get into the future where we can do longer ones, we can actually each of us go into hanging out in whatever hexagram we want for a while, and coming from that place and being that intelligence. We've done that a little bit with a few, with Jamin and Melissa and Nolan and Evan before, where we did it with 5 elements, and we were 5 of us. But to do 8, it takes a little longer, and it gets a little bit more. It's a little bit more sophisticated to do. And it takes a little longer. Can't just do it in an hour. It takes several hours. But anyway, that was a start. That was like planting a seed and sharing something from there about that. And so what we're doing now is we're settling out of that divine embrace. We're just kind of, and as we do, I've got about 9 minutes left before I end the meeting. So if anybody has, we're just going to relax now. We're going to release all we've been working, believe it or not, intensely, but in a really cool, fun way, except for the shadow part. No, the shadow part's okay too. It's just the mind, and the mind's like that. It's just plodding work. But, but we have to do it. It's necessary work, or we can't have this there would be no contrast to this acidic place we get to at the end where everything's kind of exquisite. There's this scintillating air of exquisiteness to it, and other things like that. And each one of you may find your own different way of experiencing it, depending on what hexagram, or like Deborah, you might just have gone through all of them and say, I want that one, that one, that one, that one. I'll take them all. I just want all of them. That's usually how I did it in the past. I could never choose either. I just want all of them. They'll all work for me. Thank you. But so anyway, yeah. So I look forward to the day where I'm not doing most of the talking in the third phase. We all seem to contribute pretty equally in the first two phases, but I'd like to see all of it, more and more, all of us. Although Melissa's got some courage, because I think she's got a lot on. Well, and so does Deborah. Has some courage in this place, because to do a siddha, you got to, women know what's real. They're not going to just say stuff because, oh, it's a siddha and let me just see if I can do one. No, they have to feel it. They got to get that this is a siddha. If I'm going to say it, I got to do it. I got to do it in line with the reality of what that siddha is presenting to me. I can't just frivolously go, oh, this is a siddha. It's so exciting. No, you got to settle into it and offer, and give what that siddha is offering to you, to everybody. And they have to get that and be that what you're sharing. Just like everybody's doing right now with rapt attention at what I'm saying. That's how you know you're doing a siddha, because it's like, bam. It's not boring.
Well, I don't know if everybody's noticed, but for me, like the room got brighter. Like I'm seeing everything's brighter right now. More intensity. And I just feel like oneness with everything. Even the computer is like, I'm all of it. It's like, wow, this is trippy.
See, that's a really good kind of sharing you do after you come out of a siddha. It's that simple like that. It's like, wow, my head just expanded, include the whole universe, and yet my feet were as small as molecules. How does that happen? And then my spine was a ladder that went from hell to heaven. I don't know how that's happened. Just simple. I mean, they can be. I'm playing a little bit, but I mean, they can be simple. That just how you experience your experience directly through your sensory. You can add a few thoughts and other things if you want, but you can stretch it with whatever. There's no rules. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share before? We've got about 5 more minutes. And I'm pretty strict disciplinarian, so if anybody starts blabbing and time's up, I'm going to say, excuse me, time's up. I got to go 9:09. I got to get up early. So I don't have a problem being really, like, psh, that's what lots of years of martial arts does to you. It makes you so you don't have to, be too polite. You can just say it like it is.
Thank you, Sandra. You are a true gift and a blessing to all of us. And thank you for guiding us and carrying us further on this pathway. It's beautiful. We love you. I love you. Hawa Ganeshis.
Wow. Wow. Your light fills my heart with your blessing. Thank you. And everybody in the space tonight fills my being with joy that we could all be here and participate and share our story and get real and know that this is, it's gonna find its own way with us. And as you can see, it's pretty enthralling wherever it's going. But it will stack down into your life somehow. I guarantee it. As just will. So anybody else?
I just want to say quickly, hello. This is my first time joining. Thank you for welcoming me. The reason I was late is actually I was at a prayer for compassion screening this evening. So
Cool.
yes. So I just joined this group, all of you, yesterday in the campfire, and I saw this meditation group, and I said I really want to join this. So thank you for having me. A little bit about me: I'm vegan. I'm a Reiki practitioner as well. So I felt called to join this group.
Cool.
Compassion was a beautiful film. Have you all seen it? Have you all seen? Yeah. No? Oh, I hope you get to see it soon, Evan.
Nice.
And Nolan. Okay.
You seemed like you were really tuned in even when you joined late. So I'm glad you came.
Oh, yes. Wonderful.
I got the sense that you were really digging it, and you were just flowing with what was happening. You missed the shadow part, the fun part,
know.
not. But
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of shadow the past 2 months, so maybe I was meant to miss that. Maybe.
Oh, maybe that's why.
Maybe.
Yeah,
that's
sometimes
why.
we get a break when we really need one.
Yeah.
All right.
Deep in shadow.
So Jamin, Melissa, Ray, Nolan, Evan, Deborah, Carla, it's been lovely. Oh, Jamin, how do I keep this recording?
We can deal with that tomorrow. Just hit stop; it'll be saved. And,
okay, and I can just hit stop and then close it, and I mean end meeting, and we'll figure it out tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. I think we've. Let's see how many were. Yes, we're in. One, 2, 3. Yes, we're in 8. That's a perfect start. 8 is the number of the arena of the work in esoteric terminology. So we have created our arena for this work to carry on, and that's only in relation to the real thing. Not, you wouldn't use that like an arena where gladiators. It's not that kind of an arena.
Yeah, and look at the pattern. We got the 3 women down the middle. Jamin, we got the 2 brothers and the 2 sorcerers at the bottom.
oh yeah, right.
One of the heavens and one of the earth.
Okay. The only difference here is I'm in the middle and you're not. You're but I see what you mean. How you're doing it. I got it.
Nolan and Evan are brothers. You're right. They do look alike and they have the same last name. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be it. Yep. Okay, so I'm before I say total goodbye, that is officially the end of the meeting, and namaste to you, all of you, and we are all namasteing to everything we have been connected to this evening, and our future and the past, and all of humanity, and all the living beings who we wish their suffering we assist in liberating, so that there is no more suffering for any sentient being anywhere. Boom. That's what this is about. Begin synergy meditation. Oh, perfect, Ray. Perfect, Ray.
Thank you, sir.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh, look at
Go over and out.
that.